Let me take this opportunity to thank God for this moment here in Addis. As you know, this setup was a setup for celebration. You can all see. But I would not be telling the truth if I didn't say I am disappointed. I am. But I am disappointed because of two things. Number one, I am disappointed that Raila Amolo Odinga did not win, because he was the best candidate. And I have a regret for Africa that they missed an opportunity to be served by the finest of our country. Having said that, I have three things that I'm proud of. Number one, Baba made me very proud. He was the best candidate that we could put forward. He was available. Whenever I booked an appointment, he was there. Whenever he had to travel, he was there. Whenever it was early morning or late evening, he was present. And he was there all the way. As a candidate, I want to tell you, as a politician, I have supported many candidates. Right? On this Africa Union chairmanship, Tinga, Baba exceeded all expectations. He drove the campaign like it should have happened, and therefore I am very, very proud of you, my brother Raila Odinga. You did not let us down. You did the best. You put your best foot forward, irrespective of the outcome.
We did not get it, but I can tell you the resilience, the tenacity that we have seen. Even after the event, the Honorable Raila coming out and saying he wants to make a statement. For a moment we were trying to figure out how to make it in the hall, but in the hall President Ruto made it on his behalf to concede defeat and speak to the democratic process. Raila came out of the hall and he spoke to the media. And one thing came out clearly, that if there's a country, if there's a leadership, if there are people who want to anchor democracy, these two gentlemen have displayed it to the African continent. It is a gesture that has been rare, because we all know what is happening in the continent, but they came out to say, let us use this platform at the AU to show that people can move forward in a peaceful manner.
We accept the results, and I've congratulated my competitor who has won, and I wish him the best. So there will be a lot of blame games that are going to be played. People are going to say, oh, it is because Baba did not do as much as he expected. Oh, it's because Baba is now tired, because he's too old. All sort of things, that maybe because those people used more money than they used, Ruto just wanted to humiliate Baba. It was not genuine. in saying that he was supporting him and so on and so forth. But I made the decision myself and announced that I wanted to run for this position myself. Ruto only came and said he was going to support me when I really met. And I want to say that President Ruto did everything possible. Support this campaign. They gave me all the logistical support that we needed. That enabled me to travel around the length and the breadth of the continent and made an appointment for me to meet all the leaders around the continent. And I met all of them. And actually we were sure of win. But as I say, other factors have come into play. And those factors are going to come out and will be known. So we are here where we are, but let us not regret. Not time for lamentation. On Monday, they had organized a prayer meeting for me at the Bomas of Kenya. The women, orange women. And I told them, we go there, we win, tukishinda, tutaselebrate. Tukishindwa, tutashinda, tutaselebrate. Tukishinda, tutashinda. Tukishindwa, tutashinda. So tumeshinda? Tumeshinda? And therefore I will not regret it. I will walk with my head tall. There will be another time and there are so many other things that are available for us to do. So I thank you very much for sacrificing your time, your resources to come and be with me at this hour. Thank you very much.
Welcome to Politics, Policy and Politic. We start this edition on a negative note because one of our panelists and anchor, Professor Esbon Owila, lost his father earlier on in the week. And Dennis has brought up a very solid family. Maybe the members of the panel can offer their condolences before we begin the show. We start with Kevin Owidi.
Wow, I have had the experience to visit Mzee Owila at his rural home. And I was not only entertained, but I had a lot to eat, to chat, to laugh. It's a very bubbly family, starting with Andrew Awili Owila and Esbon Owila. And they are very famous sister, whom I will not talk about on air. Otherwise, Paul sana kwao, and we hope it will end and Esbon will return to the set.
I understand you refer to the late Mzee as Jaduong Owila. Why do you refer to him as Jaduong Owila?
He's Jaduong Owila. He's a Mzee, a very respected Mzee in that neighborhood. Actually, I visited his home and I was very happy, well taken care of. He's a true Luo. You know, a true Luo walks, talks, and dresses like a Luo, even in his old age. I wish you met him. He's a great man.
Thanks a lot. Mwangale?
Video, I didn't know the sister. My condolences to the family of Prof. And I pray that the Lord will comfort them as they go through this difficult time. I understand they had lived, quite to a ripe age, but still it's a big loss to the family. I pray that they will be comforted. Thank you.
I have not had the opportunity to meet Mzee, but we pray that may his soul rest in eternal peace and that the family gets the comfort that can only come from God. It's a very difficult time for the family. Nobody's ever too old to die. Even if someone is 102, the family wishes they could live to 105. But also encouragement to the family, kazi ya Mungu haina makosa. the times we want to say God made a mistake, but then kazi ya Mungu haina makosa. So we accept that this is where it is, this is where we are. And my prayer is that members who are neighbors and friends and family will come together and join the family in, the burden becomes lighter. When at home, mukieka tent muone watu wamekuja. That makes the burden lighter. Hata mimi mahali nimetoka leo nilikuwa matanga, we lost a neighbor. But when you go to the family and you stay with them, and you just sit in those tents, na ukipewa chai ya matanga unakunywa na wao, that encouragement makes the family feel, we are not alone. Our neighbors love us, our friends love us. So, wale wako huko, tafadhali mujae kwa hiyo boma. That is one way of helping the family to overcome the grief.
Yeah, thanks Fanya Mambo. Yeah. Now, Americans have got this saying called Monday morning quarterback analysis. After a big event, they come up with lots of analysis. And you remember at some stage in medicine, they say you've got a physician who can tell the disease, and then you've got a pathologist who can substantively offer an opinion on the cause of death. Fanya Mambo, when I saw you coming in, you're a person of a mixed reaction. Yeah. What do you make of Mr. Raila Odinga's tour in Addis Ababa?
First and foremost, I said Raila was wearing the Kenyan jersey in that country. So I was hoping and praying that he wins because he's Kenyan. But he was also being supported by William Samoei Arap Ruto, who we Kenyans, very many of us don't like. So it's a mixed bag for some of us because we feel Raila should have won. But at the same time, because Ruto would have celebrated the win, we are also happy that it didn't happen because we didn't want Ruto to celebrate anything. We don't wish him to be happy any moment until he makes our lives better. So as I said, it's a mixed bag for me. It's happy and sad at the same time. Also, it's unfortunate and shameful that the country had to take more than 100 people. And the person who carried the day at hawakufika watu 10. There were just 5 or 6 of them. They went there, they knew what they had come for, and they got the votes. Nyinyi munaenda hapa munabeba 100 members of parliament. What was their business there? Because a shame on them. They should have come by road, wapitie Modogashe, Elowak, Ramu, wakuje by road until they get here. Because what were they doing in Ethiopia, honestly? It's a shameful thing. Wameja in the streets of Addis Ababa. And even Ethiopia itself, after you people taking so much money, to carry 100 MPs there, they spend a lot of money there. Even Ethiopia itself did not vote for us. So it's a shame. It's a complete dictatorship.
Voting was secret ballot. How did you establish
that? Now we even know the results are out. We know those people who did not vote for us. But it was secret ballot. No, it was no longer secret. I'll show you. Kwani hujaona hata itakuwa kwa gazeti kesho. We know the people who didn't vote for us. And in fact, some people here were promising to deliver the Somali votes. Hata Somalia, they couldn't convince Somalia to vote for us because Somalia did not vote for us. So how are they going to convince Kenyans that they will bring the Somali vote to William Ruto? Now these people should be kicked out of government for lying to William Ruto. So anyway, it's a mixed bag. Happy that Ruto is not happy, but unhappy that Raila is not happy. It's a mixed bag for me. I'm not very happy. It's sweet and sour.
I'd like to buttress your point. I found it, impolite, rude, uncultured, and sophisticated for a politician to track in about 10 MCAs and then to start singing Tawala Africa Baba. What kind of mediocrity is that? And these are some of the small things that compromise our cultural competence, that you are going to Sudan, and then you think you are going to a village in Mosocho or Nyandarua, and you are carrying people to go and say Tawala Baba, Tawala Africa. What kind of mischief is that? And Raila Odinga having failed to secure this position, Mwangale, is it time for him to consider going back to his Opodo farm and plunge into dopa business, beef business, fishing, or set up an elaborate foundation and join Thabo Mbeki and Olusegun Obasanjo? Or he should have his eyes set for 2027?
There is no retirement for Raila Odinga. But I must also mention that politics is Raila Odinga's business. So unlike people who retire from, their mainstay and go to the village, begin rearing dopa fed, dopa.
I understand dopa is doing very well right now. It's in extreme high demand.
It is. Just like quail, it will also come to an end. But, politics has been Raila Odinga's business. There is nothing else he has known to do. That is what has fed him. That is what has fed his family. That we must admit. But when it comes to the AUC elections, I begin on that unfortunate note that we carried the whole parliament to Addis Ababa, and I'm pretty certain that they flew business to Addis Ababa at our expense. They will come in later and say it was at their own cost. Sakaja will come in and say he flew at his own cost. All these people will say they flew at their own cost. But if really we go down to it, they have done it at our cost. That makes the situation worse because we have been flying Raila Odinga and his PR team across the continent at taxpayers' expense. That for me has been unfortunate. I am not one of those people who thought Raila Odinga was fit for the AUC position.
Why?
And this is the reason. Because to me, he did not demonstrate the vision that is required for that position. He did not demonstrate an understanding of the AU institutions and infrastructure. Because where the AU is going, you need somebody who understands the institutional framework of the AU. And the only person who demonstrated that was Mahmoud, the candidate for Djibouti. The African Union is at a very critical place now, especially because of what is happening at the geopolitical front. And if you remember during the debate between the three, both the candidate from Djibouti, Raila Odinga, and Randria Mandiato, only Mahmoud was able to point out the institutional deficiencies of the AU. Only he was able to bring out the Pan-African Parliament, which really is a big problem on the continent. He was able to bring out the issue of the African Court of Justice and the African Court of Peoples and Human Rights, which again is very critical to the AU. So for me, in terms of competence, and I'm not just talking about competence in terms of political experience, in terms of technical competence, Mahmoud can do the job. And as a Pan-African nationalist, I think Mahmoud was fit for the job. On whether we should, or I should be supporting somebody just because they come from the country, I think there is that patriotic bit, and there is also the welfare of the continent. We have had, discussions about whether we really wasted money on that front. And I can assure you, if Amina Mohammed was again going for the AUC position like she did last time, we would not have had this much hullabaloo about it. But because we have so much pegged on our local politics, the mere fact that you had MCAs and MPs singing Tawala Africa in Addis shows us that we blow things out of proportion. The rest of Africa was not so much concerned about this position as we were. To us, it's a matter of life and death, which is unfortunate. But one other thing that I must mention, and which is again an unfortunate bit in this whole affair, is the fact that our topmost diplomats did not see this coming. We had a few days to the election, a letter from SADC, and SADC was saying they will be backing their candidate from Madagascar. And an unfortunate reaction came from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And the PS was saying that it was an afterthought. And he promised to reach out to his colleagues to find out why they would react in that manner. But it's SADC that decided that election. And for any diplomat, let alone us who are bystanders, for any diplomat, it would have been apparent to those who were leading that technical team that SADC was going to determine the direction of the election. And to dismiss SADC as, just a conglomerate of countries that, are after development cooperation was unfortunate. Because if you look at those countries in the south, contrast that with other countries across the continent, their political parties, their ruling political parties have been in power since independence. So there is a political ideology. They have been voting, en masse for the longest period across the continent. South Africa has ANC since independence. Mozambique has Frelimo, the ruling party is Frelimo. Zimbabwe has ZANU-PF. You go down to Malawi, President Chakwera is from the ruling party that has been there since independence. So barring Comoros and maybe Seychelles, which have very shaky political party systems, SADC was going to vote one direction, but we didn't see it. In the last hours of the campaigns, Raila Odinga was meeting other people. I think the concentration should have been at SADC. But again, that just points us to where the deficiencies in William Ruto's government. If you concentrate on, and now looking at foreign affairs, if you concentrate on, accent privilege and who has renewed their passport most, and that is your criteria to award, the technical capacity, then you will be failing big time. And that has made us face the wrong direction in terms of where Kenya should be looking. When you look at the conflict in DRC, when you look at the conflict in Sudan, we are facing the wrong direction. So Raila Odinga's loss at AUC, in as much as it was a loss to him as a person, it is a pointer to us as a country that we are not favored across this continent. There are people who consider us enemies to the welfare of the African Union.
Now, you raised the...
2 seconds before you go there, there's only one thing you forgot. We never really had diplomats there. We even had bloggers. And as long as these people are being paid, even if they knew that Raila is not going to make it, they are never going to say the truth because they are being paid per day and they are being paid for being there and for doing... What influence did some of these bloggers I saw in the dailies have on presidents? It was a lot of nonsense. And as long as Kenya was willing to spend money, there are people who are willing to eat it. In fact, they regret that it came on the 15th of February. They wish the campaign went on until May because they'll just eat more money and continue consuming and flying and staying in hotels. He used to go with big delegations all over the place. The guy who won was just making phone calls and saying Eritrea is a poor country, doesn't have money. You're competing, Djibouti. You're competing with the guy who was only making phone calls and he won the seat. Hii kuzurura hapa na mabloggers mnajaza kwa ndege and some funny characters.
No, before Kevin comes in, you raised very fundamental issues about the African Union. And maybe briefly, if you compare African Union and the European Union, would you actually say that African Union is fit for purpose, given the fact that the AUC chair is actually largely ceremonial, that the people who take decisions are still the heads of state and government?
No, I don't think the AUC position is ceremonial. I think the occupiers of that office have made it ceremonial. But what ails the AU, and contrasting that with the EU, is that the AU has different selfish blocks. You have the EAC working towards its own mandate. You have SADC, you have ECOWAS. All these groups have their own political structures. They have their own endgame. So if the AU concentrated on being one bloc, I think we would be achieving quite a lot. The EU Parliament, very active. It legislates for the EU. But the Pan-African Parliament, just look at our representation to the Pan-African Parliament. We are first unfortunate that we elect, let me not use a very bad term, but we elect the wrong people to Parliament. We are even more unlucky that the ones we send to the Pan-African Parliament are a disgrace. Most of them, by the way, when the Pan-African Parliament is meeting, would go to South Africa and they would be shopping for the whole period.
You'd go to Cape Town by the beach.
They will be shopping for the whole period. So if we contrast the EU and the AU, our parliament, Pan-African Parliament, is doing nothing aside from them just attending meetings and workshops. We also have the EU court. The EU court issues interdicts that are adhered to by member states of the EU. The African court does not have any power. In fact, they do not have funding. If the president of the African court were to come to Kenya, for example, to look at affairs of human rights, they can't come with money from the African court. They have to look for donors. So that is the situation.
They have to look for USAID.
Exactly. So that is the situation we find ourselves in. And that is tied to the foundation of that is political goodwill. You have people who are elected in these individual countries who do not have the interests of the continent at heart. If you contrast that with where the continent came from the OAU, the founding fathers as we know them, those were individuals who thought about the continent, Africa, and the welfare of Africans. You would not tell me that William Ruto is, now that he was given the position in, last year to lead the AU institutional reforms. I mean, it's laughable that he's leading reforms in the AU. I think now they know him. They have started, figuring him out. But if you take William Ruto on that front, take, a few other presidents across the continent, you really can't get substance.
Thanks. Now, Kevin, the critics have accused Mr. Raila Odinga of flooding his secretariat with family and friends, and that he may have given professionals a wide berth. So he may have not benefited from solid professional advice. That is number one. Number two, Fanya Mambo says that outside family and friends, his secretariat was very heavy with bloggers, and he wonders whether bloggers have got capacity to influence heads of state and governments to vote in either direction. And then number three, between Mr. Raila Odinga and William Samoei Ruto, who is actually crying, who is shedding tears, who is sweating, who is having a running stomach?
Let's start by saying the candidate was Raila Amolo Odinga. That was a personal job, not a national job.
Really?
Raila Odinga was going to be the chair of AUC to serve Africa. AU was going to employ him, and his salary was going to be his, and the Kenya government was going to get nothing. Nevertheless, because he was looking for an international job, and we are patriots, and he's part of us as Kenyans, this is one thing as a nation we had agreed to support one of our own. And this is one place where even Fanya Mambo agreed with me that we needed to support.
Which is very rare.
The only point of diversion, he said here that he was supporting Raila Odinga because Raila Odinga is a Kenyan, but he's not supporting William Ruto. I don't know if William Ruto is not Kenyan. In this game, William Ruto was also supporting Raila Odinga because William Ruto is Kenyan and Raila Odinga is Kenyan, and he thinks he is happy because Ruto has lost. It is not Ruto who has lost. Ruto was not looking for the job. He was only helping the person who was looking for that job get the job. So you need not to extend very much your loathing for the president to other people like Raila Odinga. But I also must say that about the composition of the Secretariat, you must also look at that vis-a-vis the compositions of the voters. The voters were presidents of states, independent states in Africa. And I don't think whatever the composition of that Secretariat would have been useful in convincing them to vote for Raila Odinga. The persons who are tasked with the job of convincing them to vote for Raila Odinga were Raila Odinga himself, their colleague President William Ruto, and Mudavadi, who was a diplomat under the Kenyan Foreign CS. And those other people were just people of logistics. That was all they could do. They could ensure that there's a letter that has come in for Raila Odinga. He needs to be here at this time. There was a request by Raila Odinga to one heads of state of the other. He needs to be here and there. So I don't think there's so much to do with that secretariat that made him lose. Coming to SADC, there is something that I had said even yesterday as the results were announced, that the Black Africa has betrayed us. You know, Africa is split between religions, skin complexions, regions, and economy.
As well as language.
Language is actually the most important of that. Because when somebody speaks the same language as you, he automatically passes as one of your own. But I think if the African president had noticed The black Africans, the totally dark Africans, have been marginalized a lot in every contest. Even in football leaderships in Africa, they have always been played around with. It is time they got together and talked about how they are going to face contests in Africa as a united front, rather than regional, rather than language and other things. Because it also happens that countries of the North are also largely countries of the Francophone. They are also largely countries of the Muslims. They also happen that where Africa is divided along economic lines, they also contain countries with larger economies or better economies than the black Africans. The only thing the black Africans can exploit south of Sahara to deal with this, and even the west of Africa, is their numbers. They must unite and exploit their numbers to rise like the others have done. That is one thing that I noted that we should talk about. Because if you look at the sudden rebellion by SADC, it was simply out of what I would call in Kiswahili wivu. You know, when you are the big brother and you seem to be doing well, your younger brothers tend to have an issue with you. So having an issue with Kenya and with Raila Odinga was largely expected. But unfortunately, it came to prevail, and I think Raila Odinga is a very useful person in this country. He can still serve this country in another capacity. In any case, there was a time there was something called NADCO, and they wanted him to remain a leader of opposition. He can still take that position. If they go ahead and pass that into law, we can create for him an office to be useful to this government. We have so many advisors to the president. Some of them may not be as good in their job, but I think they should have now a conglomeration in which they have a chair of somebody who has experienced the size that Raila Odinga has. But to suggest that he can go back to Bondo like Wakili Mwangale had said is not possible.
No, I didn't say he should go back to Bondo.
No, I'm saying, as you had said, I think when speaking, punctuation is difficult.
No.
I'm saying, to suggest that he go back to Bondo, full stop. As you had said, his job is politics. You should have let that statement end. Raila Odinga's business is politics. Politics is not his employment. People who are employed sometimes retire when people feel that their production has gone down. However, Raila Odinga, politics is his business. When something is your business, you only leave it when you can't walk or can't see or can't rise. Raila Odinga can still do all that, so he will remain in politics, both locally, regionally, and nationally. So I think from tomorrow when he arrives back, he will draw his plan for what he wants to do to this country to keep it going forward. Then there was something that was discussed here called people who went to Addis. First of all, anybody who was going to Addis was looking for his own resources. So whether he stole it from the county government, the national government, or the CDF, he looked for his own money, and if wherever he got that money is illegal, then you know what to do with such people. But we cannot start blaming the government that there are some people who wasted a lot of money going to Addis Ababa. There was no arrangement by the government to ferry anyone other than Raila Odinga to Addis Ababa. But we must also say, like my friends have said, going to Addis Ababa was purely people who are seeking Raila Odinga's attention in case he will be the determining factor in the next general election of their own elections. That is the truth. Sometimes it is good to say the truth even when people don't like it. Many of those people you saw going there, they are people whose election entirely depends on the favor from Raila Odinga. But I must also tell them that it would have been very beautiful if that number was yelling at the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport, singing for him to go and return with the trophy, and waiting for him at Jomo when he returns with the trophy. That would have been more beautiful. But when you carry that crowd to Addis, they were going to irritate people there. And I'm sure there are many people who got irritated by their presence, by their songs, by their bravado, and by their confidence that they were coming with the trophy. People are largely and inherently selfish people. They don't like such things. But nevertheless, it has happened. And again, there's something I need to say here which nobody would say here or anywhere else. You see that group that went to Addis? 3/4 of that group, deep inside their mother hearts, did not want Raila Odinga to win.
Would you repeat that again?
3/4 of those who went to Addis Ababa, deep down in their hearts, did not want Raila Odinga to win. If God was going to listen to him to grant Raila Odinga that seat, then Raila was not going to win. Because many of them believed that if Raila Odinga became the AUC chair, there will be nobody to hold their hands to get elected in their various constituencies and counties or wherever they are. They believe that. And we have heard many of them say that in hotels, in bars, in meetings, and in private. So I think they were pretending. Majority of them were pretenders. There are people who are genuinely meant well. Us who remained here with Fanya Mambo, we really wanted Raila Odinga to get elected. At least that place, me and Fanya Mambo, we really wanted Raila Odinga to get that seat. And the unfortunate thing is our reasons are different, which I'm not going to talk about here, Fanya Mambo. But we had hoped that Raila Odinga would win. Unfortunately, didn't win. But a good sportsman must be ready not only to concede defeat, but also to accept the outcome and then move on as if nothing had happened. But also I had somebody say that Raila Odinga's, I think it is Wakili Mwangale, that Raila Odinga did not have a proper vision for what was going to be done there. I listened to him debate. I was surprised if he was the same one. His debate was on top. His vision for the office was excellent. And it's unfortunate that he didn't win.
Now, Fanya Mambo, it's public knowledge that during the last campaigns, you were in Mr. Raila Odinga's team, and you wanted him to become president.
Yes.
And he had a core team of the people he was hoping would assist him win.
Yes.
But they did the contrary. They assisted him to lose. And then he retained the same team as his core campaign team for the African Union position. All the faces you saw there were part of the presidential campaign. So does it require the same skill set when you're campaigning for AUC and a presidential election in Kenya? Now, if you've had a team which has assisted you to lose a presidential campaign in Kenya, would you not be described as having capacity challenges when you retain the same team for an international role? One would have expected that Mr. Raila Odinga would have retained the company or capacity of seasoned ambassadors or high commissioners, people who understand international relations, people who understand diplomacy, even retired generals, people who understand the terrain in Africa. Like, for instance, when you're going to West Africa, maybe a francophone country where there's a Muslim, you would expect Mr. Raila Odinga to pick a retired ambassador or general who maybe is Muslim, speaks Arabic, speaks French, so that when he's in a room with the president from West Africa, when they're having a conversation, this Kenyan can actually read the mood. You know, in my village, when you tell somebody that, for instance, every culture has got its nuances. For instance, in Kenya, when people are done with a meeting, wakisema tupigiane simu, there's no guarantee that they're going to call each other. That is just to say the meeting has come to an end. Now, you need those people in your campaign team to make you understand the nuances, but you refer to them as bloggers. So would you admit that, in fact, you, as Fanya Mambo, you are part of Raila's mistake during the last election, but of course now you moved, you've gone to Wamunyoro, but still you maintained the wrong company during this campaign?
First and foremost, I was not part of Raila's campaign team. I was a candidate who got an Azimio ticket. Actually, it was a Jubilee ticket. And as Jubilee, we were told your presidential candidate is Raila Odinga. I am faithful to my party, so I did what my party had asked me to do. I told the party line, and I campaigned for him. Of course, I didn't also want William Ruto to be president, so obviously I had to campaign for Raila Odinga. And given another chance with the two of the ballot, I would still vote for Raila Odinga.
So I was right when I said you're part of the campaign team.
No, I was not part of the campaign team because the decisions they were making, I was never involved. In fact, I never got anywhere close to the room they were in. And by the way, some of the people who never even paid, it's a presidential. Can you imagine running for president and you don't have, what do you call them? People at the polling station to count your votes. You don't have agents. You don't have agents. And even the few who had volunteered have never been paid to date. Actually, one of the persons who is accused of having eaten agents' money, today Raila donated him to the broad-based government to be one of the ministers there. That is how he rewards the people who make him fail in elections. I don't know why, but anyway. Now, he goes to AUC. And some of those morons are with him there, literally making him fail and eating from his pockets. And then I think they have no morals because even when he loses, they don't feel anything. They just go home like it was another money-making exercise and they're happy about it. But I think having said that also, to some extent, I'm happy that this seat did not even come to Kenya. I know there's something about the sanctity of the state and respect for states and states being equal, but that's rubbish. We gave this seat to a Djibouti guy whose country has 1.2 million people. And Nigeria with 230 million people had one vote. Djibouti with 1 million people had one vote. Hata watu wa Kiambu ni wengi kuliko watu wa Djibouti. Eritrea with the 3 million people had one vote. Tanzania, South Africa with 60 million people had one vote. Kenya with 53 million people had one vote. So when you do that maths, and sometimes we wish it was not secret ballot so that we know where William Ruto voted. But that's a story for another day. But this is where the point is. I think even this African Union, to me, is a very useless outfit. It's one of the most useless outfits that was ever created. Can you imagine there is war in Congo? Are you aware that the African Union has not been able to send one lollipop? One. Hata mchele ya 2 kg tu tuambue tutoe hapa Mwea. The African Union up to now has not discovered. They are yet to know that there are hungry women and children who've been displaced. The African Union is yet to discover that you can decide to send just paracetamols or malaria tablets or even tents. They are yet to discover that the whole 49 countries that were voting, if each country was to just donate 200 soldiers, would have at least 1,000 just going there on a peacekeeping mission, just to stay where civilians are, protect innocent women and children, make sure that people are not taking advantage of them and raping them, so that those other people can continue fighting. This is the moribund institution to which you wanted to send Raila Amolo Odinga. It's a moribund outfit that does nothing for Africa. It is so useless that up to now, they are yet to send even a handkerchief. One handkerchief ya kupanguza tu machozi. If the African Union had come even, wajifiche tu na Red Cross. Waseme, we are making a press statement. Like in Addis, they didn't even talk about Congo. They were so concerned about who becomes AUC chair. That would have been a golden opportunity for them to say, wait a minute. As we have these conversations here, DRC is burning. Can we just volunteer and say, let's stop everything? Even a moment of silence just in honor of the lives of the people who have died in DRC. They did not remember. I was looking at those proceedings, I was wishing. See, waseme do something about DRC. See, they just say a moment of prayer. 30 seconds of silence. These guys were not concerned. Their concern is who becomes the next AUC chair? Who becomes the next AU chair? And then after that, they're not interested in the whole of the problems that are happening to Africa. That's why it's a very moribund institution that I wish had come to an end, because it's a useless outfit. Raila Amolo Odinga is going to become a leader of a useless outfit if he had become. So I think African Union needs to rethink itself first. They need to discover. Somebody needs to slap them on the face and tell them, wait, there are women who need food. And it's an emergency and it's now. These are 100 MPs. Shame on each one of them who took a flight there. Shame on them. I wish they took a flight to this other side and just waenda kwa mpaka tu watume lori moja ya mchele. They just went there with their fat stomachs to just sleep in hotels there and parade themselves with MCAs on the streets. Shame on each one of them. Shame on them 100 times. Na wakirudi kwanza wangepitia barabara ile ya Ruto ile iko na so many stopovers. That's how they should have come back here.
But Fanya, Mambo, to be fair to the African, the heads of state and government, there was a high-level summit meeting in Addis where they discussed the DRC crisis, and the new Africa chairman, President Lourenço of Angola, actually spoke into detail about the conflict. I suspect you're probably glued to the elections, and you missed these other proceedings.
They are speaking about conflict. Any idiot can do that. Nobody is sending anything. Nobody is helping. That lip service is useless. When you hear your neighbor's house is on fire, and then you call a press conference to say, we are here to talk about the fire in my neighbor's house, that makes you a very useless lip service kind of leader. Your neighbor's house is on fire. Send one bucket of water, even if it's going to put off only just one flame. Or at least send them a mattress, send them a bed sheet. These are the nonsense of saying you can do a press conference. Even me, Fanya Mambo, I can go up a Serena and find a press conference. Even you, anybody, even Bunge la Wananchi did a press conference on their stones about it. So the difference between them and Bunge la Wananchi hakuna.
Well, I think you've beaten that issue. Now, Mwangale, Owidi spoke about the role of language and religion in Africa Union elections. And the probability does exist that Africa still remains in the shackles of the Berlin Conference, when the white men seated in Berlin took a piece of paper and a pen and decided to divide Africa. So Kenya found itself under the British speaking English, and all these divisions have come across. And understand the chairman of the African Union Commission and the deputy chair have got so many common denominators that all of them speak Arabic, all of them are Muslims. If somebody ventures and says that probably Raila Odinga was a victim of religion and languages and regions, these economic or blocks like SADC, ECOWAS, EAC, would they be venturing into mischief, or they would just be, talking about stuff, trying to get pies from the air?
First, I think in the defense of Ali Mahmoud, he's also French speaking, so he does speak French and English. But the Anglophone, Francophone, and Arabic speaking
and Lusophone,
has been there, and really it has been fueled by external factors. So you have the Anglophone countries that are still looking west. They are still beholden to their colonial masters. The very reason why you have heads of state elected by millions of people from Africa trooping to the Commonwealth, conference outside the country. So it's the colonial master summoning their former colonies. You also have the French, who are always interfering in the domestic affairs of countries. We're talking about DRC, and DRC has had a lot of French influence, both Belgian and French influence to this date. So that war has been around. I would not say that it has contributed to Raila Odinga's loss. Raila Odinga's loss is largely a Kenyan problem. That we must say. SADC came out to prove a point to Kenya and to EAC. And by the way, EAC is just composed of Kenya and Uganda, if we are to be very honest to ourselves. Because even in terms of financial contributions, you look at how much Kenya is contributing, how much Uganda is contributing, compare that with how much South Sudan has contributed, how much Burundi has contributed, Tanzania.
DRC?
I don't know if DRC has been contributing at all, because they are new entrants and they belong to two blocks, as it were. So that war has been fueled by external factors, but it has always also been sustained by selfish internal politics. The case of conflicts across the country, South Sudan is still at conflict. They're enjoying a modicum of peace that may come to an end very soon, because Salva Kiir has started displacing Riek Machar's people in government. Sudan is really at war to this day. The politics of Somalia, again, a very sad state of affairs. You go down to Burundi and now DRC, because DRC is basically at war with both Burundi and Rwanda. We are not saying it, but that is a state of affairs. So we have some selfish politics happening within the African states, fueled by external factors. We are not saying that we do not have selfish leaders across this continent. These countries that have wars, including DRC, with Fachi in DRC, are led by selfish people. We are talking about minerals across the continent. Owidi had mentioned that Black Africa only has numbers. But Black Africa is very wealthy, if we are to use that terminology of Black Africa. The majority of minerals, excluding oil, is in Black Africa. DRC is, if you are to remove the people, that would just be a country of minerals. So this selfishness across our countries, we cannot just lay blame on external factors. These external factors find fuel internally. But one of the other things that has contributed to Raila Odinga's loss is also in how Kenya has managed our neighbors. And back to DRC, because DRC has contributed quite a lot. In fact, by the way, if the alliance of the Sahel states had been allowed to vote, because they have been banned because of the coups that have happened there, if they were allowed to vote, there would be no round two. They would have voted for Mahmoud, not because he's Muslim, even though that is a factor that may have come into play, but because of how we are managing affairs across this continent. We have come across as a bully, and William Ruto has made matters worse because he wants to handle regional matters as he's handling his cabinet. You cannot handle matters in that manner. You have to employ traditional diplomacy, to use that term. So I was just mentioning DRC. There was a time when Kibaki was president. Kabila flew to Nairobi very fast because his gold had gone missing. And I'm saying his gold because it was his gold, not the country's. Mm-hmm. His gold had gone missing.
Those are statements you can repeat before a court.
I can repeat before a court. I mean, those matters that are public in the DRC. And I mean, there were a few discussions. It turned out that a few politicians had aided and abetted,
the disappearance of that gold.
And we have aided and abetted the theft going on in DRC. You remember the curious case of a certain individual who is now providing leadership in one of our legislative arms. And he had also engineered, some gold disappearance. And this is how we have been dealing with our neighbors. We have been dealing with our neighbors. We are the thieving sibling. Tanzania has been complaining about us for the longest period. There was a time when we had blocked their lorries from coming to Kenya because we thought they were, taking up the orange and waru market. Yet we cannot supply
onions and tomatoes.
Exactly. So, but especially with DRC, there was a time when President Uhuru Kenyatta went to open an Equity branch in Kinshasa, and that was a very curious thing for me then, that a whole president was just going to open a branch.
I mean, promoting Kenya and multinationals is not a bad thing.
It is not. It is not when that when that is intention. When that is the intention. But then Kenyan business people were trooping to the DRC, not because business had opened up in Kinshasa, but because mines were now available for people to take over. If we were to audit who owns mines in DRC, you will not miss Kenyans in that list. And you will not miss current Kenyan politicians in that list. This is information that is public in the DRC. So we have been punished because of how we have been engaging with our neighbors, number one. Number two, because our foreign policy is very elastic to give us any direction. In fact, as it stands, we do not have any foreign policy. Anything goes. If today William Ruto wakes up and says he recognizes the Sahrawi Republic, that is what will carry the day. If he wakes up tomorrow and says, we now do not recognize Sudan as a country, that is what the country will go with. So it is a wake-up call for us Kenyans that we really need to be accommodative of our neighbors. By the way, if you go across this country, there is no single country that does not have Kenyans doing business or employed elsewhere. You would hardly find all other countries represented in Kenya, people working, owning businesses, owning hotels, but Kenyans are all over. But if we take that aggressiveness and employ it as our foreign policy, then yes, we'll be making money. We would say, oh, we are producing more than Tanzania, we're producing more than Uganda, producing more, but then we'll be left isolated, and that is where we are headed. That is not where we were in the 90s, in the 80s.
But Wakil, when you're talking about East Africa integration, and last week Fanya Mambo indicated that the people selling KDFs here in the streets, KDF not the military, but some sort of the Burundis. Yeah. We've got Ugandans. We've got everybody in Kenya. That seems to be, your statement seems to be a bit extreme. But when you talk about Kenyan being a bully, I understand that Donald Trump is actually a bully. So are you suggesting that Kenya and the US, because of their relative, I mean, if you say Kenya is probably a power in the region, that we are using our economic force to bully people in the region? We are obviously not using tariffs.
We are, but you know, Trump can afford to be a bully. They have been bullies for 100 and above years. If we maintain this attitude, we'll remain alone. You know, we have always held ourselves out as, you know, the best placed country strategically.
Anchor state.
Yeah. But I mean, Mombasa port could easily change to Dar es Salaam. There is no incentive for, you know, the rest of the world to keep coming to Mombasa. That could easily change.
So you're saying that Kenya is a broke bully?
We are a broke bully. Beggar bully. We are a broke bully. And if we continue like this, things are not going to be very good for us, because we are antagonizing the very people who will be offering us cushions in the future. If we are talking about the US, when William Ruto had gone for that much hyped
to get the NATO ally status,
and one of the perks that were celebrated was that the US base in Manda would be expanded. You would not expect that countries that are trying to stay away from the control of the United States will celebrate Kenya. Countries that are moving away from Western control will not be celebrating Kenya and saying, you know, Kenya is doing well, yet we are inviting more of what they want out of their countries.
Now, Kevin Owidi, what are the lessons learned on this matter of AUC candidature? Lessons learned?
Actually, it's just lessons revised. What happened are things that we should know in politics, and we should also expect. Things like you never know who is going to vote for who, because the voting is secret ballot, and nobody tells the truth in matters voting. And for diplomatic reasons, many of those presidents would not unequivocally tell you that we will vote for you and we will not change. But there are a few things that have been said here that I largely don't agree with, like that Kenya is a bully. Even if Kenya wanted to be a bully, it has no way of bullying anybody for anything. Kenya does not have a currency which the rest of the region uses. Kenya is not really a donor to the rest of the region. Kenya does not even have a military that would bully anyone in the region. So I think sometimes we end up blaming Kenya when in our mind we want to blame the president.
Blaming both.
So sometimes when I hear people talk, especially here,
especially Fanya Mambo,
they bring government issues that reigned during Kibaki, during Uhuru, during Moi, and during Kenyatta 1. And now the listeners out there see the government as the government of President William Ruto. We have to be very careful. Like when you bring issues of President Uhuru Kenyatta went to Tanzania to open an equity branch. One time, Tanzanians were barred from selling their chicken in Kenya. Ugandans were banned from selling their eggs in Kenya. Those things have not happened during President William Ruto's time, because Kenyans also do a lot of business outside this country and with those neighbors. So we must handle them the same way they do handle us. But I also must say, in matters foreign policy, Kenya and many other African countries cannot have foreign policies cast on stones because of simple reasons of fast-changing leaderships in Africa. And many of these depend on who is in power at what point in time. You find a country that was largely our enemy suddenly becomes our very close friend because the president who has come in is now the friend of the president of that other country. Unlike the United States and such first world countries, where foreign policies is fixed irrespective of which president is in power, unless there is executive powers or their houses have debated and agreed that this is going to be our new foreign policies. Our institutions are not that strong to maintain solid foreign policies over a long period of time. I heard wakili aliongea juu ya Kenyans owning mines in DRC. Owning mines in DRC is not illegal. Any businessman who wants to do mining can own mines in DRC. I have even noticed in Kenya now, there are even Chinese who own those mines. Kenyans would come and make noise, oh, why are Chinese owning mines here? Those Chinese who probably own mines here employ very many Kenyans in a resource that if they did not exploit, many of us do not have the capacity to exploit. And even when they do exploit them, they sell them, and these people they employ get a lot of resources from them. The only thing that needs to be done is streamlining it so that we know how to treat foreigners mining in Kenya, and we know how to treat Kenyans mining in Kenya, and we know how to treat Kenyans mining on their own land. And of course, safety is something that must be taken care of. The way Kenya manages its neighbors, let us just be fair to the president. To say that the president is handling its neighbors the way he handles his cabinet, I think is to get it all wrong. In fact, we have President William Ruto, the only president I've seen in this country among the five, that does not wake up one morning and just fire a cabinet minister for what he said in a bar, of what is supposed to have said and did not say. I think he's very patient and calculating. Nevertheless, the other issue that we have that we need to talk about in this place before we close this chapter, you had asked me earlier what we had learned from this thing.
Yes.
And I need to go back to it. When you want to win an election, you must look for a narrative that brings the majority together. If in the future we are going to go for such positions in Africa, we must start now trying to sell the narrative of dividing Africa along race and color lines rather than religion. Because we know religion, we are outnumbered. We also know that language, we are outnumbered. We look for somewhere where we are not outnumbered. That is how to win elections. Because electorate, even if they are presidents like in AUC chair, they are largely decided on emotions. They are largely decided on where do I belong. Is Wamunyoro our person? Then we support him. Is so-and-so not our person? Then we reject him. That is how we operate in Africa. And I saw it even in America, incidentally. So I think we need to look for a selling narrative and also a dividing line which gives us a majority on our side as we go to any of these elections.
I was struggling to get Owidi's answer to your question because he has responded to everything I have said. But it would be very dangerous for us to export our brand of politics to the continent. And I think this was an attempt to do that. If anything, these AUC elections have shown us that elections at the African Union and elsewhere, because, we have elections even at the United Nations, are not like nominations in Yaribari Church. this is a different. It's a different. it's a different.
Are you making a specific reference to a constitution in my village?
It's just it's just one that the first one that came to mind. But it's a different brand of politics. And if we say that we now need to cast a narrative and use that narrative to get votes across the continent, one of the things that has come out clearly is that Kenya wants everything to itself. Any position that comes up that is open, Kenya wants to bid for it. It doesn't matter who else is on the table. That is what has been happening across board. And this has, understandably so, angered many other countries. Because you can imagine if you're in a group, just a social group, and there's only one individual who wants everything. Wakisema mnaenda sijui wapi, hiyo ni mimi nitafanya. Hiyo ni mimi nitafanya. You will become the enemy. Unconsciously, you'll become the enemy. So one of the things that we need to do, and we cannot run away from what past governments have done, because foreign policy is contained in interdicts that we have put down on paper. It is also contained in norms, customs that we have developed for ourselves. So it has been a custom of ours over the years that we have been bullying our neighbors. It has to stop. And it stops with us electing the right people into office. If you elect somebody who has a penchant for snatching every little thing that is not theirs, imagine what they will do across the continent. So we really have, if we are looking at us being considered as a powerhouse as we were in the past, then we must also look at the people we elect into high office, and especially the executive.
Again, to be fair, for the first time we've got a session of paper on foreign policy. Which has been developed by the Prime Cabinet Secretary Musalia Mudavadi, which has gone through the entire process. There's been stakeholder participation. Yeah, I know that really irritates you, but it's gone through the entire process. It's now referred to as mashinani because they've indicated foreign policy must no longer be foreign. It's going to the National Assembly so that there is also the parliamentary participation. And in all democracies worldwide, from my reading and research, foreign policy is largely driven by the head of state or a head of government. I mean, Owidi indicated that the foreign policy in the US, that the two houses would debate on something. But right now, it's at the pleasure of Donald Trump, whatever he wants. You remember Biden had given Ukraine unlimited support, and he said there's no negotiation which will take place around Ukraine without Ukraine. But Donald Trump says, wait a minute, let's be realistic. I can have this conversation with Russia in the exclusion of Ukraine, and when I give you a proposal, you have to run with it. I think maybe it's probably some landmines.
Those are now customs, but there are certain things that are cast in stone. The US, for example, even with Donald Trump, is not going to get into an intelligence pact with Russia. It can't happen. They're not going to get into an intelligence pact with China. It can't happen. But there are certain customary things that, are flexible, according to administration.
Now, Mwangale, again, you're opening another Pandora's box. I mean, the person who's just been confirmed as the head of intelligence in the US is said to have a soft spot for Syria and Russia. But probably maybe that's a story we'll have for another day. But going back to Fanya Mambo, there's a number of people, as Owidi had indicated, up to 90% of the people who are in Addis Ababa, I don't know why he's been very generous by saying 75, up to 90% who are hoping that Raila becomes the AUC chair so that for the first time we have democracy within ODM, because the ODM party primaries cannot be described as free, fair, nor credible. And even the other people who wanted to run for president, hoping that Mr. Raila Odinga will not be around. So do you see that Mr. Raila's failure to capture these seats would affect a number of people who are interested in running for president, including, say, Kalonzo Musyoka? I mean, for the first time, people were surprised when he sent out a tweet saying that he wishes Mr. Raila Odinga well. Then there was the former deputy president who was impeached, but I understand you've got a good relationship with him now regarding Gachagua. Then also there is Dr. Fred Matiang'i. There's a number of people who have expressed interest. Do you think Raila failure to capture this seat would affect their viability?
First, he started by doing a horrible thing when he went, and I wish I told him not to do that. I don't know why he spoke so well of Sakaja, and Nairobians are not happy about Sakaja.
That is Mr. Raila Odinga.
Yes. And he was saying, I trust him with the affairs of Nairobi. And I was like, I wish I could take those words from his mouth. Because you've seen Babu Owino complain that the ODM ticket for the governor is already gone to Sakaja. And Babu Owino wants to be governor. As to whether that is a good idea, I don't know. But ODM has that intrinsic problem. That there are times when what the voters want is not what they get as the candidate on the ODM ballot paper, which is a very unfortunate place to be. So now, if ODM does continue to live up to what it wants to do in Nairobi and give Sakaja the ticket, then they are going to lose that seat in the morning. Because this is a losing candidate. By the way, Sakaja, Ruto, same WhatsApp group. Same WhatsApp group. I mean, the only thing keeping them between now and between, the only thing between them and office is time. We are wondering if there's a way you can turn the clock fast, 2027.
Weke majira.
Yeah, tutoe watu. So, yes, there are people who are going to be affected. Now that Baba is back, and if he continues to govern the party, it's been governed in the way it's been governed. And if he continues to speak well of people like Sakaja, who Nairobians know, in fact, our roads, we can't even begin to speak about them, then we have a huge problem. So that I see for it's coming up, and ODM might actually lose very critical support. Because there comes a time when Kenyans get tired of getting the wrong people being shoved down their throats. And if that happens, especially in a place like Nairobi, there will be a revolt where people come and say, this is your candidate, not ours. We don't want him. And that might be a rude shocker for even ODM itself. But there are people who have always hung on to his quotes. There are people who pray that Baba lives to be 120 years old and he continues to be in ODM. Because all they need to do is to come and pay homage to him. Tell him, Baba, walisema Baba Mwana, Baba Roho Mtakatifu, Baba whatever. There are people who just come and say that and then bring money and they are guaranteed. So I think there's the Sifuna axis in ODM. And I'm glad to see people like Anyang' Nyong'o rallying behind Sifuna and saying the future of ODM. Sifuna is part of that future. And why they are saying that is because Sifuna is saying the right things. He may not be saying what is popular to some people, but he's saying the right things. And sometimes it appears like he's actually against the bread-based government because he speaks for Mwananchi. He speaks those things that Mwananchi is saying, those things that are important to us. So we pray for democracy, not just in ODM, but in all our political parties. You mentioned Wamunyoro severally, and I told you one thing, and I have made it very clear. If there's one person who has fought Rigiji in this life, it's me. Even him, he knows. But the day he woke up and started fighting William Ruto, I immediately embraced him. Because now we are fighting the same adversary, and we are fighting the same war. And we have now got an enemy of my enemy now automatically becomes my friend. The day Rigiji will wake up and decide he's going back to William Ruto, I'll start fighting him immediately, same day. In fact, I don't think the sun will have gone down. So as long as he stays on this side, because I knew that Kenya's enemy is William Ruto. Before the ballot, I don't even know why so many Kikuyus voted for him. By the way, my people, you are a letdown. Yeah, that fever was really bad. So it was clear to me then, it is clear to me now. There were bloggers who were my friends on this side. When they went to that side and they tried bringing me to that side, and maybe they are listening to me, they know. I told them, no, mimi sikuji yuko kwa yellow fever. I can't try and convince Kenyans that the economy would fit on a wheelbarrow, or their thinking would be that of some of those MPs I see on that side. So that's not going to happen. But I can tell you for free that this country is going to be led by the right people this time around. In 2027, we are going to choose the right ones. And we have no time for the wrong ones. Hakuna time.
Owidi, you've been accused of a fever.
What?
Yellow fever.
You know
I wonder how he fits on a wheelbarrow.
You know the problem with Fanya Mambo. You know today Fanya Mambo has spoken a little home truths that are going to make us discover really. You know, Fanya Mambo, Rigathi, Kalon, they are in the same WhatsApp group. But there are a few things he has said here that I need to remind him about. The last one he just said a few minutes ago. That is following Rigiji because Rigiji is opposing.
I'm not following him. He's joined me.
Is following.
Probably I'm leading.
Is following. So what Fanya Mambo is trying to tell us, that with him, issues don't matter, policies don't matter, manifestos don't matter. What matters is the person. So he has chosen to follow the person of Rigiji because the person of Rigiji is anti-Ruto. But let me tell you, you started following Rigiji when Rigiji started fighting with Ruto. So in actual sense, you chose the side that comes from your community. I wanted you to follow issues. Then you would have discovered you would be following somebody completely different. And even when you abandoned Raila Odinga, you abandoned Raila Odinga even before he committed any crime. Because you didn't want to follow any policies, you wanted to follow people. No, and I have noticed that right now, you love everything Rigiji loves and hate everything Rigiji hates. Now that you have been discovered, now when we'll be debating here, be very clear that we know where you belong, why you belong, and the region you belong to. That is what is going to go. But nevertheless, there was something that was said here that Kenya is bidding for every position. I think that was not very true, because I can't remember any other Pan-African seat that... I don't think... Okay, remind me of the few. When I finish, you will remind me of the few. So, and even this particular position Raila Odinga is looking for. Was looking for. Nobody, no Kenyan has ever gotten that position. Even that lady tried and didn't get it. So I think wanting is not a problem. Because here we have in this country, there is no any time since 1963, Akikuyu has not vied for the presidency. And there is no problem. There is no time. I think Kalu has only missed once in 1970, I think.
But so are you comparing national politics and...
yes, I'm telling you.
International roles?
I am telling you that there are what is called groupings. Kenya is a group, Tanzania is one. If Tanzania can vie for this position each time they come, especially if they select one, that this is what you want, until you actually get it and sit on that seat, you cannot be treated as somebody who wants every seat because you have not got it. So I think Kenya can still want this seat as and when they come up, and the voters will decide whether they win or lose those seats. That is what we are going to do.
You wanted to offer him a polite reminder?
Yes.
Owidi is insisting that Africa needs to borrow the Kenyan brand of politics. I don't think I can convince him otherwise. He's stuck on that. But
no, he's very liberal. You can convince him.
First of all, I don't think there is a Kenyan brand of politics which I want to send to Africa. No, politics the world over is the same. I told you, even in the United States, the man called Trump decided to play the politics of natives, and it worked for him. You look for a dividing line that when you use to divide people, it brings the majority on your side. Even in religion, there are people of Satan and there are people of I think, Jesus. If that line was going to work, it gives you the opportunity to hate the other side and love this side. And in that case, you have a double bet. Those who hate the other side come. Those who love this side come. That is how you do politics.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. That is not the brand of politics that is what we are accustomed to. And it has achieved certain results in certain quarters for us. But it does not mean that that is the right way to go. If I was to borrow the philosophy of Ubuntu now in relation to us, bidding for every position, Ubuntu says that because we have been taking these positions and because we are a collection of equals, let us let others, bid for these positions. Because you know your economic muscle, you know your strategic positioning in the continent, it is only fair. Now, we are not looking at what is legal. What is legal and what is moral are two different things. Exactly. It may be legal, but it is only fair and moral that you let other people, take the spot. So that brand of politics where we are saying we find one thing and use it to divide, the masses so that we get the majority on this side, that is what has been causing us problems. It may look like, it is our way of achieving democracy. But we are in certain messes because of that kind of politics. And that's why I'm saying the brand of politics that is required at the continental level for the continent to move forward is one where we are employing Ubuntu. But if you borrow the Kenyan scenario, for example, we'll have a scenario where, like we've had with the AUC elections, where we are going across the continent trying to sell a few things. In the last minutes of Raila Odinga's campaign, he was going around dangling stale carrots, in my view.
Stale carrots?
Yes. He was meeting certain presidents who everyone knew had already made up their minds. William Ruto was meeting certain presidents and promising them certain things that Kenya would deliver for them, so that they would make their vote in favor of Kenya, not because William Ruto is really interested in the African Union or the health of the continent. We have known him, we know his footprint, but because he wants Raila Odinga out of the way. That is what we are transporting to the continental level, and my view is that we can do better. This seems to have worked for us and by the way, when I say working for us, those who are losers in 2002 will say that politics didn't work for them. Those who were losers in 2007 will say things didn't work for them. Democracy was not at work. The winners say democracy was at work. Those who lost in 2013 will say democracy was on trial. I think we've heard that statement very many times. Yeah. But the winners will come out and say it is a good day for democracy. That is how we have been playing our politics, that the losers are very bitter because they consider the winners to have employed very dirty tactics. But the winners will come out and say, no, you are not strategic enough. But we all know what was at play.
So as we wrap up...
Let me just say something. This divide and win political game plan is the same one that was used. It's only that they used the wrong one. They used religion, they used language. But I'm saying if they used the race, they would have won. So if you don't want to divide and policy win, start by erasing these language lines, regional lines, race lines. That is the only one that can assure us.
But why would we do that?
And also, let me tell you, when you invoked Ubuntu and said, oh, we have been getting this thing, now we live for others. What do you say about the mountain leaving the president for other Kenyans?
I mean, if they come out, you see, universal suffrage says that every individual has a vote. Here, I'm talking about nations. A nation is represented by a head of state. So if we come out and say, Kenya has decided we are doing this, it is that one individual. We have one vote. But if we are talking about mountain politics, we are talking about millions. So we cannot say the mountain will decide when you have millions within the mountain. What leaves
you have just said that Kenyans should leave these seats for others. The same way the mountain should leave the presidential seat for other communities.
And I agree.
Not that one, since multi-party came, since the new constitution came, the only first time they were going to be out of the presidency is this time. And what do? They go and have Limuru 3 to come and remove Ruto.
Are you not creating a false equivalence?
I agree.
Yeah, but I'll wrap up because of time. Maybe you can make your concluding remarks. Now, Fanya Mambo, you obviously are going to run for a political office, and the probability of you winning is extremely high. I even understand that some panelists are going to register in your constituency.
Yes.
Because they live and they work in your constituency, so they must vote for you. And we hope that when you go to the National Assembly, we will not see you at AUC saying Tawala for another candidate. But looking at the presidential race, who do you see who is organized to take William Ruto head on? There is a mention of this. All these people have been mentioned. There's Kalonzo. People are talking about Matiang'i. Who do you think is sufficiently organized to take him head on?
You are under the spell that you need to be organized to defeat William Ruto. William Ruto has defeated
do you think
himself.
someone will just walk from
I told you if he vies alone, he'll be number 2. That thing is over. If Ruto vies alone, he'll be number 2. Kenyans don't want him. Mm-hmm. Full stop. So it is, if whoever vies against William Ruto, you don't even need to be organized. You just need to tell Kenyans it's either me or Ruto. And Kenyans will vote for me. It is that simple. So forget it. Don't have that conversation about who needs to be organized to do what? To remove a president who's kicked himself out. Every day he's saying something. You see what happened in Isiolo. Everywhere he goes, in the hope of galvanizing people together, he scatters them the more. He gets a backlash. He imprisons 48 young people from Isiolo, and then wanaandikiwa drunk and disorderly. Muislamu ukimwandikia drunk and disorderly ataja sasao na pombe ni haramu. The conversations going on in Isiolo are very hostile against the head of state. So I can tell you, Owidi keeps saying here is Kikuyu. Sasa Isiolo kulikuwa na Kikuyu wangapi? Rigiji alimobilize wa Kikuyu wangapi? He goes to all those places.
A policeman in
no, all I'm trying to tell you, they keep saying that the Kikuyus have a problem, that it is, it's Owidi's word, that Kikuyu attacking to mwingine. Now, we are in a place where the president goes to Isiolo, and the people of Isiolo, sasa hao hawakumobiliziwa na Rigiji. They were just telling the president blank to his face, Ruto must go. Na akiongea wanawaambia uongo. Na ile barabara mpaka kuna t-shirts zimetoka za hiyo barabara. But all the same, what I wanted to talk about was this gentleman called, because we are winding up, this gentleman called Wetangula. Wetangula, who has decided that he's the speaker and he's the leader of Ford Kenya na hakuna kitu mtafanya. Wetangula, let me remind you, for the first time I saw ODM MPs threatening to go to Amunyoro. In fact, they were asking for a pin location. Now, by the way, I'm offering to send them the pin location.
You want to be a pin?
Waende huko Amunyoro. Because, Wetangula, this country is not yours. And that speaker's position is a privilege that you've been given. And that seat belongs to Kenyans. You decide, the court has ruled that you either become the leader of Ford Kenya or you become the speaker. Ford Kenya na wabunge wako wa sita, ama ukuwe speaker wa National Assembly. Wetangula, you have to decide. And by the way, we are not begging you. It needs to be very clear in your head. You cannot be the leader of Ford Kenya and be the speaker of the National Assembly. Na hiyo kujigonga kifua itaisha. This country is going to be led by the rule of law. So that needs to be very clear to him. And for MPs, continue fighting. Now Azimio is the majority. Kina Owidi are the minority. So now, majority used to call from, they used to call Kimani Ichung'wah from State House. And then they would tell Kimani Ichung'wah how they want things to happen. Now the call will be coming from Capitol Hill. Raila Omodo, just come and occupy your seat properly. Unapiga kutoka Capitol Hill, unapigia Junet Mohamed, unamwambia vile unataka kwende, bunge inaenda sawa sawa. So things are going to change. But the people don't see the seriousness of that. But changing the leadership of the National Assembly and determining who the majority is means you are controlling from where Parliament is now controlled. I can tell you Kimani Ichung'wah used to be called from State House, and then they would be given directions, and then everything would cascade down. Sasa naona kama Capitol Hill itakuwa inapiga simu kwa sababu majority kwa pande gani? Tuendelee vizuri.
Mwangale, yeah. Fanya Mambo here says that for one to beat William Samoei Ruto, you don't need to be organized. You can wake up from a deep slumber or from that it's going to be a walk in the park.
First of all, we must not discount the cunningness of William Ruto. In as much as everything is stacked against him, you would be surprised that he still has a few million followers. That is the unfortunate nature of our politics, that you may have somebody who is looting the country dry, but he still has followers. Unfortunate. We have a behavior and a habit where we get tired and exhausted in shifts. So there was a different shift that got exhausted in 2017, a different shift got exhausted in 2022, a different shift is planning to get exhausted in 2027. So now that is the case, you'd be surprised that the individual who becomes president or who would be the topmost contender would not be among this political crop. Because borrowing from what we saw at the beginning of, in the middle of last year, it is very possible for the young people especially. I don't have very much hope in the older generation. The young people especially, to be swayed to one candidate who is not part of the political crop. Whether that individual will be a solution to the country or not, but it will be an entirely different person. It does not mean that person would not need to mobilize. They also need machinery. They need to go to the grassroots. It will not just be a social media affair. They will need quite a lot of work to be put in. But I guarantee you that it will not be among this crop of political leaders that we're seeing. And that is why, by the way, they are falling over themselves, to be spokesperson of the opposition. Kalonzo Musyoka does not sleep because he wants to speak on current affairs. Rigathi Gachagua also wants to speak on current affairs. All these individuals are falling over themselves because there is no clear person, and they know it, I think, that will be a top contender against William Ruto. But an individual will arise that will have the support of the new exhausted shift for 2027.
Kevin,
Yes.
as President Ruto successfully kicked himself out of office, has he pronounced himself as a one-term president?
I think some people need to be told the truth as it is. First of all, Junet has repeated it multiple times that he's very loyal to President William Ruto and his government. That notwithstanding, the rebellion you apparently try to see in parliament, that those threats are simply jostling for those positions that people want. Who doesn't want to be the leader of majority? Everybody wants. So they are just threatening. Once they are given those positions, they will remain loyal to the government of President William Ruto. Let me tell you, there is nobody there elected under ODM, which largely elects people with the low vote, who is going to tell you that they are going to leave all these resources President William Ruto has placed in their hands to go and follow people who have over the years. How does Munyoro man put it? Munyoro says that his people don't like betrayal. Correct.
Oh, you're looking for betrayal.
Betrayal. It had gone out of my hand. So these people betrayed us in 63, 78, 202, and recently. You think our people are going to follow them just because a few people in parliament want to get positions? They are going to get positions and they are going to return home, and we are going to tell them this is the path to follow. This is the only person you follow and gives you what you want. We helped Uhuru Kenyatta stabilize his government in 2018. Do you know the largest seat he gave us? The chairman of Lake Basin Development Authority.
Who is the chairman?
When Raila Odinga came to help President William Ruto to stabilize his government, what does he give them? Finance, Attorney General. Those are the people we are going to follow. So let us not pretend. But there's also something I want to tell you, Fanya Mambo. Politics is a very dirty game. When you see there is a large crowd in Isiolo, and a small section has a group of men, and men only, young men, who are heckling the president. No, they have been hired and put there. Even yesterday during the vote in Addis Ababa, the night before that in Kisumu, there were people walking with money in Kondele and hiring people that you go and stay there. Wherever the election goes, this is what you are going to say. And they did it. Immediately, the election was over. The media was promptly there, and those people, the group, was chanting, Ruto must go. We know, we understand politics. I have been in this game since I was a small child. So I know how this thing is done, and I know how people are mobilized. You know, one single mosquito in the house can make everyone not sleep. 10 hecklers in a crowd of 30,000 people will be seen more than the many people who are cheering and clapping. So, Fanya Mambo, don't be cheated by a few people who are hired to go and heckle. Otherwise, may God bless you.
And finally, Fanya Mambo, what do you expect of the IEBC selection panel? Because I understand that as of today, as of the deadline on 15th, we had about 2,000 people who have expressed interest. Actually, 1,848.
Did Fanya Mambo apply?
Where do you expect?
As I told you, the IEBC selection panel was constituted long time ago. It's like the PS positions. What they are doing is selling people to bring their CVs to sanitize the nonsense they're about to do. So don't waste so much time. Nobody who wants to be president, especially William Ruto who wants to be president again, will have a surprise at haya. Ni huyu chairman, haya, ni huyu. No, they have crafted the names. They know who the names are, and they even know the worst case scenarios. So I just urge people, just go there knowing that this is a sanitizer of a process. And also, whoever is going to sit on that panel, take my advice. When you go on that panel, make sure you come out last. Make sure you have the least score. Kenya has a way of rewarding those who get the least. For you to be chairman, you need to get the least marks. And I'm telling you from experience, go check the marks that were gotten from those other people. The people who had the least were put at the top. So if you want your name to be considered and you're going to sit for that IEBC selection panel, make sure you just score above 50, maybe 50.5. You'll be the last ones, and the last 3 names will be given to the president. People who rank top are usually people with very high integrity, very high scores, very genius, very affirmative, very strong. Those people who come out that way are number 1, 2, and 3. Who wants those ones for IEBC commissioners? Nobody. So if you are going there, if I was going there, I would pretend to be foolish just to score and pass, but I'd make sure I'm number last so that I become chairman. And then I lose my hair very quickly, because once you become IEBC chairman, one of the first things you lose is hair before you then lose common sense.
Now, there's feedback from one of the members of the audience who says that she likes the new Fanya Mambo, who has abandoned objective political analysis and is now running for political office. I guess you're getting many people who are going to be following you, Okili.
I'm disappointed that the IEBC selection panel has not given us a commission as yet. Because given the urgency of the IEBC commission,
but they have 90 days.
No, they have 90 days, but it's not a must. They use the 90 days. I mean, yeah, we saw the Gachagua agency with Parliament and Senate. Our institutions have shown us that they can do things within hours. The people who wanted to apply already had their papers in place. The people who, as Fanya Mambo has mentioned, the people who have been chosen for this commission, because one of the realities we must face is the fact that the composition of the selection panel is heavily political party centered. So those individuals are already set. They should have taken a week to invite applications.
Instead of 2 weeks.
Instead of 2 weeks, taken 3 or 4 days, because you shortlist, they will not go through all the CVs, by the way. Shortlist within 3 days, have interviews, the public interviews within another 3 days, and give us a commission. As simple as that.
No, Mwangale, please get out of Utopia for a while.
No, I know.
How do you review 1,848 CVs in 3 days?
I mean, companies, very blue chip companies invite applications for senior positions, and they have 10,000 applications.
And they review them within 3 days?
They review them within days. In fact,
within 3 days?
It's possible. 2,000. They have the resources to do that. You can see not all the 2,000 individuals meet the criteria, I assure you. So it is very possible to do things efficiently if we want to. But because we want to take our time and, prize ourselves so that some individuals now approach us and pay us to, it's unfortunate.
Kevin,
Yes.
Is it possible? Actually, you're probably the person with capacity and competence to answer this question. You've been the chair of a board, and you've recruited top leadership. Is it possible to review 1,848 CVs in 3 days?
It is largely not very possible, because even if you wanted to collect 1,000 people to do the job, managing those things and collecting them, first of all, there is something called long listing.
So, Mwangale, you're getting classes.
That is first of all, hell on earth. But I don't think we should be worried about this, because that committee had already told us the day we will have a new commissioner. So it is upon them to work overnight, work throughout, and get for us. They had already given us time, so I don't think we can change what they had given us. We can change the legal timelines so that we get this thing as fast. In any case, there is not much these people are going to do rather than run the next by-elections, which we have stayed with for very long. There are times we have had those officers appointed very close to the election, and they still do a very good job. There is something I need to say also. Fanya Mambo. As I was sitting here,
it appears like the two of you need a show.
I have seen Hamisi. Hamisi was saying that the celebrations that were going on in Nyeri about the loss of Raila Odinga is the lowest one can go. I just don't think he got the exact words to use. What is happening is, if you want to know the thinking of our people being hidden by their leaders, because their leaders can think logically because of their education and intellect, look for the mamambogas in the village, the vagabonds in drinking dens, and listen to what they are saying. What that they are saying there is their mindset, which their leaders are hiding from us. The whole idea is how you interpret that information is yours.
Now, Owidi, a member of the audience, says that you are among the people who are really bleeding that Raila Odinga did not win, because when he comes back, you'll be among his victims, because you've been seen campaigning against him, and you're going to suffer his wrath.
Oh, you know one thing, I have never put my hopes on Raila Odinga for a very long time now, because I have been a victim of Raila Odinga's selective way of dealing with things since 2005. So I was not expecting any good from him, whether he is here or not. But also you must know, in my strong belief, Raila Odinga in Addis Ababa and Raila Odinga in Capitol Hill is the same one. All you would need to do is arrive in Kenya at Jomo, be met by Nyong'o, Junet, and the rest. He gives them instructions when he goes. They tell the people that Baba amesema ni huyu na huyu na huyu. And because people saw him at the airport with these people, they know amesema hivyo and they'll move with it. So going or not going will not change the way he will treat me or he will treat my government. It is the same.
That has been Fireside, Dome over politics, policy and polity. And from research, you understand that this is the fastest growing political show in East Africa. Thanks for your time. Good evening.